In the news this week, calls for better COVID-19 nursing leadership as miscommunication and unemployment plagues the industry.
A nation together in isolation. The RSLWA speaks about ANZAC Day during coronavirus.
Lock them up. Australasian WA President demands prison sentences for racism perpetrators.
And on Western Perspective, a woman of clarity. An extended interview with WA's star sign language interpreter Fiona Perry.
This is the Evening News with Ivan Lowe and Sarah Smith.
Good evening. A WA nurse has spoken out demanding better industry leadership as they're beset by confusion, poor communication and a lack of unified voice during the coronavirus battle. They want better solutions towards COVID-19 patient care training, clearer information and resolve casual nurse unemployment. Nelson Liu spoke with Claire Murphy in this exclusive interview.
What is worrying you as a nurse?
Okay, so I can't collectively speak just for myself, but I guess if I speak for myself, what's worrying me is hearing a lot of friends that are still in casual employment that are actually struggling right now to put food on the table, as a lot of people are. So what I decided to do was do a collective interview, which now we nearly have 300 nurses that have actually done that over 3 days.
What are the biggest problems that nurses are facing?
One of our questions that we asked was, do you feel you've been offered appropriate training to safely look after COVID patients? So we've had 272 responses and 70% of people said no. It says, has your employer been keeping you well informed on changes in recommended care guidelines for COVID patients? This is a little bit more promising. 42% of our nurses that were surveyed said yes. Did you feel your employer provided you detailed information on your entitlements regarding leave and the job seeker, job keeper packages? 82% of nurses surveyed said no.
Overall, how big is the problem?
I guess they're segregating us into groups, but we're all nurses at the end of the day. I feel there's not enough communication involved. Roger Cook has, media asking him questions every day. Let us, as frontline health workers, ask some questions and get some answers. We just want to feel heard and respected.
You've reached out to these bodies, like the unions, the Australian College of Nurses and ANF. Have you heard back a lot from them at all?
We've got APRA, we've got ANF, we've got ACN, we've got our chief nursing officer. Where are you? I've reached out to the ANF 8 emails, 7 text messages, 3 voice messages. Just a response of bye Claire. I've got a lot of emails that I need to attend to.
Where do you plan to go from here, given that you've got all these responses?
Get it tabled with a letter of concern to Parliament to highlight that there's obviously issues that need looking at.
Finally, what's your message to the state government?
My intent is to have one voice. We're all nurses. Get together like National Cabinet. Talk to each other. Stop the confusion out there.
We may not be able to meet together this year, but on the 25th of April, the ANZAC spirit remains strong. Australians around the country will be commemorating online and in their driveways this year as ANZAC services move online. So what will the switch mean for young people who usually attend the services? I spoke to the RSLWA CEO about the event.
ANZAC Day this year will be very different to usual. What's your expectation with how the coronavirus shutdown will affect services?
Well, obviously it's going to be very different. We're not doing any of the traditional services that we have been for over 100 years. So with the restrictions with regard to the coronavirus, we are very encouraged by the potential turnout of what we're calling the driveway commemorations. That is, people go to the end of their driveway or into their farm gate or on the balcony, and then separately but with neighbours and so forth, and keeping their distance, they'll be able to commemorate in a very special way.
Do you have any concerns that doing things in this new and different way will mean that the event can be a little less meaningful for some people?
I actually think it'd be more meaningful. Of course, they won't be able to gather at cenotaphs and at the State War Memorial and other memorials around the state, but they will gather as a family. And I've lost count how many suggestions there have been of a family member playing the last post either by a bugle or a trumpet or a clarinet, whatever they can get their hands on. So they're going to give it a crack, and I think that's very Australian, and I think it's going to be quite exciting.
I think moving to this kind of new sort of more online format and more individualistic format might appeal more to younger people.
I think so. In the last 4 weeks, I've been quite much savvier in terms of social media, what it can do for us. We've got a very strong following already on Facebook, on Instagram, and we're actually encouraging on ANZAC Day that the younger folk and the older folk use Instagram and Facebook to get together whilst they're apart, if that makes sense, to commemorate ANZAC Day.
The government has strongly condemned a rise on incidents of racism this week, as the Chinese Association of WA calls for tougher penalties for acts of racism. Chonghua Association WA President Dr. Ting Chen thanked the minister for his comments and said that Chinese people in WA has borne more of a brunt of the crisis. He also says that people incite racist incidents should face prison time.
Yes, I think they should go to a prison because this is just encouraging this unity of our community and also stirred up the harmony of our society.
We would hope that there will be a follow-up to this. It was a brief statement in Parliament. We hope there will be another press release of some kind emphasising the fact that this is not acceptable behaviour.
A national roundtable on the future of the airline industry could not attract any federal government representatives this week, despite invitations being extended. The roundtable was attended by industry, trade unions and experts, including Virgin Australia CEO Paul Scurrah and ALP President Wayne Swan. The Transport Workers Union WA Secretary Tim Dawson said that if either of the two airlines went under, it would make flight prices skyrocket.
One from the federal government turned up, even though they were inviting, which is very disappointing, considering that we're talking about 12,000 jobs with Virgin in the aviation area, never mind jobs in tourism and in other areas.
Western Australians are being advised to get the flu vaccination before winter hits this year. The Australian Medical Association in WA has recommended people to get the jab early as the best defence, calling it necessary with the influenza virus changing every year. With COVID-19 affecting Australians this year, the association says it's vital, claiming not getting the vaccine could lead to conditions associated with coronavirus.
It can cause a much worse version of COVID. If you get two at the same time, you can have much worse outcomes. It can also cause confusion with COVID. So essentially, flu is a very good thing to prevent. Everyone should flu vax this year.
US President Donald Trump has recommended reopening the country's economy with a cautious approach following expert recommendations. The President has outlined 3 phases of economic restoration, with some states able to return to normal activities before others. Although there is no timetable being laid out by the White House, the plan was presented to state governors this week in the hope that public venues would soon reopen if a viral spread stops. South Korea's ruling party has returned to government after this week's election. President Moon Jae-in's Democratic Party snapped up 163 out of 300 seats in the National Assembly, while the opposition was only able to secure 97 seats. The Moon government's recent swift actions against coronavirus have gained public support, despite the country's sluggish economy, political scandals, and tense nuclear weapons relations with North Korea.
There's no place like home. Astronauts return to Earth after spending months in space. NASA astronaut Andrew Morgan and Jessica Meir are returning to solid ground after spending several months on the International Space Station. Jessica became trailblazer while on the station, conducting the first all-3 female spacewalk with her crewmate Christina Koch. And Andrew Morgan is credited with running hundreds of experiments on the station, bringing back vital data for the space agency. They return home on Friday with Russian astronaut Oleg Shubreska.
And that's our weekly news and current affairs. We have the latest news on our website and social media pages.
Until next Sunday after 5:30 p.m, look after yourselves, stay at home and have a pleasant evening.
Take care.